Just a moment. You're able to see my screen though, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay, so to continue from where we started off last class, we were looking at the characteristics of ethnographic research, and we were seeing how. Yes, Shruti.
No, sorry,
Shruti's
that
hand
was by
is
mistake.
raised.
Hello?
Shruti, is it by
Hello?
mistake? Yes, Shruti.
Yeah, yeah,
It
it
was
was
my
by mistake. So
Okay. All right. Okay, we continue. So, we were looking at the characteristics and we were saying that to just kind of tell you that it is actually, so ethnographic research is in a way a part of the anthropological method of research. Okay. And we were seeing what are the different ways in which it is done. Now, the main kind of idea, the key idea over here is that it is done in the field, okay, within the field side. It's not something that you see or you kind of see from secondary sources and then understand. It is that when you're in the space, you're living within the people or living in those conditions and communities, and you are then conducting research. So the primary thing being that you have a first hand view or first hand understanding of what the space is actually like. All right. Now, within that, now how is this kind of set up? And that is why this kind of questions about saying that they're not overall research questions. Sorry, they're not overall hypothesis that is framed. It is based on research questions. Now, these research questions are what is the difference between the hypothesis and the research question? Hypothesis is a statement, an informed statement that you make on the basis of data that you have, either from secondary sources or primary kind of sources or primary data that you have collected from before. Okay, and on the basis of that, you make a sentence or you make a claim or you make a statement. Okay, and that about what you will be researching or what you will be seeing in the cell. Now, through the process of the or through the research process, you then go ahead and you will test. Okay, or you in this, and when I say test, you try to prove most often that what you're saying is correct. Okay, sometimes it may so happen that through your research process, you may find that the sentence or this hypothesis that you began with is incorrect. Okay, and you can then say that the hypothesis was incorrect, and this has been the actual findings from CERT. So, in that sense, the ethnographic research does not begin or it is not guided by this hypothesis. Uh, it does not make these sentences of names. It instead sets up questions of what it can research or what it should research within the larger theme or within the larger idea for the project or that is being or the site that is being studied. Now, what happens in research questions is that it enables you to break down your project or your area of study into key deliverables or key ideas that will in some ways take forward your thesis. Or will take forward the project. Okay. The hypothesis, on the other hand, is mainly just a single sentence, right? It's mainly a single sentence saying that this is what you think about the subject, based again on work or material or data that already exists. Okay, and based on that, you then decide to uh, make this claim, or you then decide to say that this is what the research intent is. The research question, on the other hand, will help you say that, okay, now the research question also, the questions are such that they are not any or, random parts about the research. It is also, say, for example, if we are looking at, uh, let's say we're looking at homeless, the homeless or like homeless people in metro cities. Okay, that could be your broader area of research, homeless people in metro cities. But if you have to frame it as research questions, okay, you will frame it as, sorry, I would say rather hypothesis. As a hypothesis, you would frame it as many people are homeless in metro cities because of the lack of enough public housing initiatives. Okay, so this is a hypothesis, and you made this sentence. Now, within this statement or within this idea, you've already identified a subject, which is the homeless people. You've already identified a possible. You're making a suggestion towards a possible reason. So, saying the lack of public housing initiatives is a reason, and you also already have a field, which is the metro city. Now, of course, this sentence is not made on just your observation, but also your secondary data, secondary reading and understanding of this project. Now, if you have to take this idea forward and look at it, or take this idea forward and try and understand it, you will then go about, you will have a methodology for study. In both cases, okay, you will have a methodology. And that methodology will largely be about trying to prove what you have said is true. Now, if you have to frame the same topic as a set of research questions, you will ask more kind of open-ended questions by saying that what have been the rehabilitation initiatives for the homeless in metro cities. Okay. Now, what is the difference? This is just one research question. There will be many more, but what is the difference between these two questions, between this question and this statement? In the statement, you're already presuming that there is one key factor that is responsible. When you're framing a question, you're leaving it open to allowing for more ideas to emerge, allowing for more kind of things that will inform, or also allowing for more data to be included. Okay. And then you say that, okay, maybe, and then you can decide, like, because you have a wider range, then you say that, okay, there is something that is more relevant and something that is not very relevant. Okay. Now, in this kind of in this kind of major difference between the research question and the hypothesis is that sometimes when you frame a hypothesis, because you have a very kind of focused area of study or a focused idea that you're looking at, you may tend to overlook or not include things that may also have maybe not a very large impact, but would have had some impact or an indirect impact on what you are studying. In the research questions, because you're framing it as a question, saying that you are inquiring into, you are looking, you are searching, there is a greater possibility of laying down everything that is there. See, and the ethnographic research, that is a key kind of characteristic of the ethnographic research. The last important point is about focusing on meaning of words and images rather than numbers. This basically means that it is not looking for statistics only. Okay, it says focuses. It is not saying it doesn't look at it. So there is always, we always give these percentages. Not this percentage of people or this percentage of vehicles or something. We're always giving statistics to prove what we are saying. In this ethnographic research, you say, okay, you say that you can make a mention of statistics, but it is also important to read and analyze what this means. And you will read and analyze. So of course, it's not to say that you cannot read and analyze from statistics, but you will also see that what these things are or what these meanings are of way people everyday life of people, of rituals, of in some sense, or the way they dress, okay, or the way they or the food they eat. So it is not only a simple record of all of this that happens, but it also looks to analyze why this is why these things are so. And I think I don't know. I mean, there is no real way in which you can actually give an example, but if you have heard about the tribe in the Andamans, right? So it is a very it's a protected tribe, not and there are a lot of there have been a lot of regulations made so that they are allowed to live in the natural habitat. But there was one researcher, okay, and she conducted this ethnographic research on this tribe, where she kind of lived with them for a very long period, 6 years, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, and yes, Shravan, and she kind of lived with them, and she was the only person to really map, and that is how we actually understood who this tribe was. So the research that she conducted was an ethnographic research because she lived with them. It's not like she just went there, clicked photos, or put them as things on a map and just moved away. She lived and worked and tried to understand what the community or what the tribe actually was. Okay. We'll move to the next slide, Sarah, please. Yeah. Okay, so this is a very large diagram, okay, and I thought that in some ways I just wanted to show you how a connection has been, or a connection has been attempted for this kind of ethnographic understanding into architecture or into the space of cities. Okay, so there are these four quadrants that have been developed, okay, and which is acts, deeds, thoughts, and facts. Okay, so this is a very large diagram. I'm just kind of showing you this. You can see this data. I'm not getting into it. It's too much to get into it. But we will look at one part of this diagram. Okay, and Sarah, can we go to the next slide? Okay, and this one part, so the first quadrant of the earlier diagram is what we thought could as you know. So there was Lewis Mumford basically who felt that this is one way in which space or cities should be understood, and he used this triad of place, work, and folk. Okay, where he said place was a sense. So the what you it like this have you all heard of this term sense of place? Okay, so like a distinct feeling in that particular place. He said a work, he called it as experience, and he said folk was a feeling. So he said that this kind of triad of place, work, and folk, that is essentially how we should plan and understand our cities. It also comes at a time when a lot of urbanists, a lot of architects are trying to understand what is the most kind of ideal, um, what is the most kind of ideal uh, uh, way to plan cities. So there is Patrick Geddes, okay, and Patrick Geddes has planned a few um, cities in India as well. Okay, so he was essentially, I mean, he worked as a town planner, but he was essentially a biologist. And he said that there has to be a connection between planning or this designing of cities and the way society actually functions. Okay, and so this diagram of this the place work folk diagram is called the Geddes triad. Okay, and where he's basically looking at trying to make, that's why when you see, no, then so he's making this grid, a nine spaces grid, and he has place, work, and folk on the diagonal. And then he says there are these overlaps that can happen just because of how the grid meets. You just read it as a grid. He says place, work, place, folk, workplace, folk place. Okay, and he's trying to say that if we look at these three as the way in which, look at these three ideas as being the dominant idea for towns, for cities. Okay, says that you are then able to understand the relationship that people have with places, whether it is the space for living, the space for working, and how they impact each other. Okay, because at um, up to this point, it has always been the basic necessities, now, which is food, like food, clothing, and shelter. So this he's trying to say that, okay, what is this shelter? Okay, what is shelter? And and shelter is not just the home. The shelter is also the sustenance of that. So he says that like work becomes a very the work becomes a very crucial kind of idea, because it's also where a lot of people spend. I mean, where people spend a major amount of their time. Okay, and of course, it's then it is, connected to like Lewis Mumford's larger kind of idea of saying the city as an organism. Okay, that anyways, that is a much you don't have to we don't have to get into that. I was just showing you this diagram saying that how this is so how cities also are planned or were attempted to be planned on this idea, saying that how balances can be created because of which or because of the way in which society actually functions. Hmm. And in through this diagram, he's essentially looking at the role of the designer or the planner or the architect, basically. And I thought that this is something that you all can also look at when you all are framing your research. That um, when you're looking at these structures or these, they don't have to be just these structures. You always have to look at them in a context. You always have to look at them as a site, because they are part of sometimes clusters. Sometimes, I mean, there's a scale, na? There's the scale of the cluster. There's the neighborhood. There's the area, then the city. And how does that really come through? Because the first kind of thing about local structures or local sites is that that they're not given as much as importance. They may be really old structures, and we've been seeing all the structures that all of you have been coming up. They may seem like they are everyday structures. They're not very important, but they are there for a very long time. They are relevant to a lot of people. So how do you study a structure like this? Okay. And I think that it is important then this diagram in some ways can help you understand that how, how mainly how people have adapted their ways of living, materials that are available to them, okay, um, to build these structures that they may have inhabited one time or still continue to inhabit. So the relevance of the structure is not just when it was built, but even what it continues to be there today. Of course, in monuments, sometimes that changes very drastic. They become mainly tourist sites, and or you're engaging with them more on a kind of visual level. It's in that, oh look, this is so old. But when you inhabit these structures, when they are homes, they are institutions, community buildings, it completely changes. So that is when we can look at the ethnographic method and say that how these expressions, or how they, like in this sense, like the architecture, the built form is not just an expression of design, but also these kind of conditions of living, or these aspects of living. Like how we always say that it is a culture of a place, or it is a culture. What is this culture? Or what is these ways of living or working? And I think that that is important, that all of you even discuss that in the papers that you are writing. It is not enough to only describe what the structure is, or it's not enough to just describe uh, in terms of its style or its elements. It's also important to understand these structures in terms of how people are engaging with them, if they are inhabiting them, if they are part of people's neighborhoods. Okay, and I think that this is something we wish that you also highlight in your structures. And I think of course, and this again, okay, this part that I'm saying you will mainly be able to understand this through the anthropological and the ethnographic method. Ethnographic, of course, if you're living in one of these structures, then how are you planning to structure your paper? and if it is somebody whom you know, or if it's a part of your neighborhood. Okay, so that is when this these kind of methods, the anthropological and the ethnographic method, will be completely relevant to a lot of you. Okay, yeah, I think that's it. Anybody has any questions?
So when we study a larger site in terms of the program, where we actually see what the people are doing and like we look at the context of the activity and the daily life and the the social traditions and the social conditions.
Hmm.
And is that similar to an ethnographic study for on an architectural scale?
That would be an anthropological study because you're looking at them, you're not living with them.
No,
You're
it's
not
actually so is there like a time scale kind of thing? Because like if we're actually going and like okay, got it.
somewhat because
Right.
when you are living with them for a very long period of time, in a lot of ways you are also inhabiting that space now, and you will be living in those conditions, you will be living in that context. If you are only like if we do what we do on study trips, that's not really an ethnographic study because we are still there and we're only going, we treat it as a site that we go to, document, measure, draw, and come back. But in the ethnographic method, you're actually living in those kind of, you're following those customs, you're following those ways of eating. Okay.
So would this classify something more personal, like a more sort of personal outlook on it?
Sorry, no, I didn't get your question. What were you saying,
So
Ambika?
is more personal in a way, an ethnographic study?
Not completely, not personal in the sense, but you have a first, it's like I would say this thing about like between primary and secondary, na? Like you are a primary data collector in that because you are in the site and you're within the field and you're collecting that information. Like
Right, I got a little
because,
confused with the distinction between I think what Shavan also had, the anthropological and the ethnographic. That's got me a little confused now.
in the way I see it is that in the ethnographical is something that you will also have to live like that. You will adopt those ways of living. It's not like
And not something I adopt, but something I'm already living as. Like if I'm talking about my own lived experience as a
exactly.
part of a larger.
Definitely. That's why I said now that if you all are inhabiting that space, then it will be definitely an ethnographic. If your own homes, for example, like I remember two kind of structures. One was Aradhya's, that Art Deco house, and then there was this other one where I don't know, I've forgotten, but it was a very beautiful one with the doctor's dispensary and all of that. Now, for those, they will be ethnographic studies because you're within those spaces.
Okay, understood.
Anyone else has any other questions?
Sorry, one more thing. So when we
Yes.
jot down our study, do we have to mention the method that we chose? Do we have to specify, or is it just something that this is going to help us with our research?
I think if you can specify, you should. Sarah, what do you think, Sarah?
Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah. Can you one second?
Sorry,
Can
I'll
you,
just repeat.
yeah.
My question was, so these methods of research that we've studied, do we mention them specifically in our paper? Or
No.
no? Okay.
No.
This is
You
just to
don't.
help us.
Yes, this is just to help you all.
Okay.
You don't have to. Yeah.
Anyone else has any other questions?
So let's say if the site that I'm talking about, I viewed as a local landmark for a long time. Would I be a part of the ethnographical study, or is it more about a social or racial or economic group when I talk about an ethnographic study? Like, is it just that I've lived in the neighborhood and I've seen this site as a landmark, or that I am a part of a group or a community that this site is really important to?
I think it's about how you are engaging with that structure, no? Like how, because you're seeing it every day. I mean, because it's a landmark or it's part of your route, everyday route. You're only seeing it. You're not actually inhabiting that space.
It's not like a church or a temple would be for a particular group of people.
No, I don't know actually. I don't think so. Don't think so because you
Okay.
have to be. It's also how you frame your intent. Now, what are you researching about it, or what are you studying about it? Like if I'm just saying that if I frame a structure because see all of you also when you you brought all these structures. Okay, one is that we've given you one criteria saying that it has to be within your neighborhood and it has to be an old structure, and that is why we have and that is how you have selected these sites. Okay, the other thing is that how you're choosing to study it. No, you're making you're making some kind of what do you say? You're making a statement about it in some way, saying that you're understanding this site as I don't know. You all have not got to that part yet, but you're saying that you're understanding the structure. Maybe saying that with respect to the other structures. That's a kind of easy one for everyone to make. So like understanding it in a particular time frame, for example. So if this structure was built at this time, you could compare it with other structures that were probably more prominent, and then you do a comparative study and say that okay, this is what this structure was, while what else was being built at the same time. But now that to do that, you would not require an ethnographic study. But if you have to take a structure and see that how it, you're understanding this structure as part of, say, a particular community. Okay, like you're saying that how particular communities build houses like this, that would probably be, of course, anthropological overall. But if you belong to that community and you've been living in a structure like that, or you've been living in that same structure, then it could be ethnography.
Any more questions?
Okay, so we'll move on to what you have been doing. Have all of you put in? I thought you all were asked to put up or submit your work, right? Have all of you submitted the work?
There are quite a
We
number,
agreed.
yeah.
No, 55. Sorry, 55 people.
There are about
55. I can see
PDFs in the
55. 55. Should we start discussing them quickly?
Yeah, we could do that.
Let's see, we'll open first. Who's this? Aparna's is there first here.
Okay.
So she's saying, Sarah, can you see hers as well?
Yes, yes, I can.
Okay, okay. Nice ideas, Aparna, I think. I'm just not sure of that conclusion. This is generally the way history usually becomes, like, this loss and nostalgia. It's nice that you're kind of putting it into this aspect, this productions aspect that I thought was nice. Saying that India was on the brink of change and how movie production reflects social and hierarchical change. I thought that was a nice way to, uh, look at the paper.
Yes, I think so too. In fact, I like the way you have kind of structured it in the sense of, giving an aim and a body and a conclusion. I like that because, in each of it, you've kind of very clearly mentioned what is it that you will be looking at. Okay. Like, for instance, this aim, I would say that this becomes more of an objective. It's not an aim. The aim is basically, why you are doing it. So this is an objective about studying how the structure came into existence and what kind of an effect it had on the neighborhood. So I agree with Janella. And I also like that part which Janella also mentioned right now. Okay, in terms of the historical aspect of it. Yeah. Is Aparna here, or are we just talking to
Who?
ourselves?
Sorry, there's too much noise here. Whom were you asking?
Aparna? Is she
Aparna. She must not even be here.
here?
No, I don't think she is there.
Yeah, I don't think I do. Okay, we're
Oh
just
God.
talking to
Okay, so
ourselves.
maybe we should pick someone who's actually here then.
Yeah.
Okay, Aishwarya,
Hello.
have you submitted? Yeah, sorry, who's this?
Janila, it's Sahil.
Yes, Sahil.
Janila, so I had a small request. I had actually called you also. Can we split into groups so that maximum
Oh,
of us
yes.
get credits?
Okay.
We could do
Okay.
that. We could do that. I'll
Okay.
make a. The only thing is, how do
Wait,
you want to do this?
we just do that room now. We'll make that other room.
Fair enough. Lekin,
Wait, where is it gone though? I can't
from
see
what,
that.
from what number do we?
Yeah, how many people are there here?
We have 78 people total in class.
No, right
And
now there
68.
are 66, so 33 in the other group.
Okay.
Yeah.
33. Okay, this is going to be
Oh, so
challenging.
only the person who makes the meeting can get that option, I think. No?
Yeah. So you know what?
Hmm.
It's difficult to make the groups now. I mean the channels, no?
We can make 2 channels and then we can
No,
join
no.
roll number wise over
Wait,
there.
otherwise you can do that. Okay, so what we'll do is, I'll make one channel, all right, with my name, okay, and 33 of you or whatever, 33 or whatever number can join that channel. Yeah.
No, Sarah, instead of making a channel, can we just start another meeting and then these people can join there? Because it's not like we're going to be seeing the same. I mean, are we doing that? Are we going to be seeing the same people all the time?
I don't know actually. What do we do? Or we shouldn't, right? We shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
No?
I could send the roll number list of the final people, 78 people that are in the class, if that helps. We do have that.
Nay, I think you know what. I think I agree with what Janella is saying. Maybe we could just start another meeting on this same channel. Okay. And Henna, isn't that what you're suggesting, Janella?
Yeah, just
We'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll leave this and I'll start another one. Okay.
Okay.
And some of you can join there.
Yeah, so 33 of you, please go there.
Yep.
Can you tell the numbers from the roll numbers?
Oh,
like
you all
1 to
decide. Yeah. 33.
I know. We
One.
don't even know who's here and what is the roll number. So you all please decide exactly.
Okay.
Can we just do boys versus girls? I
Huh?
don't think anyone's. I don't think